Welcome to Turner Tools, EdTech tips and tricks from a teacher librarian. On today's episode, we learn about Google Data Studio. It is a serious game changer. Data is amazing, but how to display it? Google Data Studio allows you to create dynamic digital dashboards. Let's check it out. Let's start by going to datastudio.google.com. To create a report, you actually just go to Create. I tend to make sure that my data sources are in there first. And so a data source is wherever the data that you're going to manipulate lives. So it could be, in my case, it was the reading log that I had all students fill out. It could be statistics on your collection. It could be test scores. It could be really anything that is basically kind of in a spreadsheet. It could also be a CSV from Excel. So wherever that information lives, you're going to have to get it into Google Data Studio. So you can create a report, and that's your dashboard. That's the final product. A data source. I don't really do too much with Explorer. I pretty much just stick with the report and the data source. So to create a data source, you just click on Create Data Source, and you'll notice that there are tons and tons of things that they call connectors, and this is where data can live. So the only ones that I have really kind of used are the Google Sheets, a file upload, so that's going to be an Excel spreadsheet. And then down here, there is YouTube Analytics, and that's the one that I've used as well. So what I really like about Google Sheets is that it is online and it's updated. If you use an uploaded file, you have to keep uploading the file for new data to be put into the dashboard. So I really like that the Google Sheets is like constantly updated because it's a Google form, and so there's constantly new submissions being made. So I'm going to go with Google Sheets. And then it's going to show you all of the Google Sheets that, see, this is all items. You can also do owned by me. You can also do shared with me. So that's going to grab all of the spreadsheets that are shared with you. These are all the ones that are owned by me. So I am going to choose, I'm going to go back to all items because I want the Battle of the Books. Sure, we'll do book suggestion. That's the one we'll do. And so it'll say worksheet, form responses 1. So if your Google spreadsheet has more than one sheet on it, so more than one tab at the bottom, you're going to have to select the one that you want to use. And sometimes that is the case, but for most of my Google Sheets, I just have the one sheet in them. So you're going to use the first row as a header, and that's pretty common. That's really easy. That it's basically your titles at the top, and generally they are right there. And then include hidden and filtered cells. One thing that I do want to say about the headers is that you might want to modify them if they're not clear as to what the data contains. So I'm going to connect the data source. And you might get a pop-up that says, are you sure? Or this is what you're doing. And yeah, you're sure. So it's all good. You do want to connect it. We can't do anything with it if we don't. All right, so right here we have all of our dimensions. And those are things that we can actually take and create things within Google Data Studio. We also have metrics, and metrics are kind of used with formulas. The one that in my spreadsheet that I have is the record count. That's how many submissions that there are. Timestamp can also sometimes be used as a metric. So, but generally it's record count that I am pulling in as my manipulated item. So you'll notice that I have number of pages. So that's like how many pages the book has. Um, and then we have like author of the book, title of the book, grade level. And so we have all these metrics that we can use. And if you notice that, like, say the author of the book, maybe this was supposed to be a number, you can actually change that to whatever format it's supposed to be. So if it's supposed to be a percent or whatever it is, because maybe it doesn't come into Google Data Studio and have the right item type. And that is pretty much it. I don't think I'm going to do that. So number of pages is not a sum. So I did change that, that little description there. You can also give them a further description if needed, if you have dimensions or metrics that you feel are not clear. And so that's pretty much it for the report, that is it for adding the data source. It is your notice that the data freshness, it'll say every 15 minutes. That's as low as it will go. So that means that the data, so if things are added to the Google Sheet, it will update Google Studio every 15 minutes. So if you're in the middle of a class and you're having them do something like the reading log, just keep in mind that it does, it takes 15 minutes in order for their responses to populate in there. Okay, so I'm just going to X out of that because that's what we've done. Or I can click this 3 blue lines with dots on them, and that'll take me back to my home screen for Data Studio. So those are data sources. Now we also have reports, and reports are those beautiful interfaces that you have seen ideas for. And so I'm going to show you a couple of examples of them. So here is one that I found that actually somebody is offering their services to create them for schools. And so this is an elementary school student profile. So you can actually go and select a particular student, and it will show their scores in math, writing, reading, and their external assessments. So here is another one, and this is a catalog of lesson ideas and templates, which I thought was a really clever use of Google Data Studio. Because we can, of course, just give a Google spreadsheet with links in it, but this is so much more dynamic because we can actually sort it using these controllers by content area or category. I have to say that this one has given me a lot of ideas on what I could do for showing resources. So really, really, really cool. All right, and so you have seen this one before, which is the one that I created for my previous school district. And that is the reading dashboard. And this is, again, something that could be put on a display screen in the school. And that's originally the way that I saw it when I was introduced to it. And I will say that I learned this by actually taking an existing report and I kind of modified it to make it work for me. And that really is, I took a template and I made it work for my needs. And then I was able to, because it's really kind of hard to start these from scratch, right? Because you're like, I just don't even know what it should look like. So I definitely suggest looking at examples of what it is you're trying to do, or even just taking one of the templates. So if I go back to Google Data Studio, the main screen, you'll see that there are templates. And so there's a whole template gallery that you can look at. And it's going to have some formats and things that might be helpful to you to start out. I did. That's what I did. I used a template when I first started out with Google Dashboard. Google Data Studio, excuse me.
All right, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, in your report, click Add Data, and then you're going to select the data source that you actually want to use. So I usually add my data sources from the main page, but you can do that right from within the report. And then you just add it to the report, and then you're good to go in terms of connecting that data source.
So why don't we get started and see what we can do, right? So I'm just going to click the edit button. So just as a side note, when we're in view mode, this is what everybody would be able to see. You can also embed the Google dashboards right into a website, which is really, really nice. Okay, so I'm going to go to edit. And let's click off of that. When I click on anything in an existing dashboard, it's going to give me information on the right-hand side. It's going to give me the data. Excuse me, it keeps wanting to go to the title on that one. Come on. Okay, so it's going to show you the data. You know what? I'm going to go into this one because that one's being a little glitchy for me right now. All right, so it's going to give us the data, and it's also going to give us a style. So the data is what it's pulling from the data source. All right, so I'm going to actually go to page 2 and show you how this actually starts out. Let's get rid of that one. I was playing around a little earlier. All right, so we want to add in just a title, okay? Just a title for our dashboard. And so I just clicked on the text button, and I'm just going to call this Library Dashboard. Now, you'll notice at the right now I have some really cool editing features. So I'm just going to highlight the text, and then we're going to go and just make it bigger, because bigger is better, right? All right, so there we go. I can change the font, and I'm going to because I have to, because I'm a bit of a fontophile, so I have to do that. All right. So there we go. There's our name. And now, we might put in an image, like maybe your school logo or your library has a logo or anything like that. And so I just go to image. And you can either upload from the computer or by a URL. I will do both to show you what that looks like. So there's our first one. And then if I just want to do a Google image search, and I'm just going to do penguin because that's what I do. I love my penguins, but I'm going to go to Tools, Usage Rights, Creative Commons Licenses. All right, let's grab a penguin. All right, so if I right click on the image and I can copy the image address. So now when I go back to Google Data Studio and add that image by URL, it is in there. There we go. We have a penguin too. All right, so maybe you have a mascot or something like that. Whatever floats your boat. All right, so now I need to actually add some data. So if I add a chart, there's lots of different kinds of charts. The first one that I'm going to add is going to be a table. And then once you click that, then you're going to have to place it. So I think I'll put it right there. So, and it's going to auto-generate this table and think it knows what you want. So right now it thought, so here's my data, it says data right there. It already has my data source, which is awesome. But it thinks that I want the dimension of grade. I don't. I actually want book title. Okay, so there we go, and we can actually make this larger or smaller depending on your wants, and you can actually change the dimensions right in there as well. But it looks pretty ugly right now. So we can also go to style, and we can make it pretty. Okay, we can also do an even row color and odd row color. So I'm going to do blue and yellow. You could do your school colors, whatever you want to. Your labels, and as well as the font size of your header and the body. So we'll increase this to 16, and there we go. Now our titles are 16 point. So you'll notice it says 1 out of 100, 1 to 100 of 719. So we can change that by going to the data and just have 10. And there we go. They can, of course, go through each of them and go through all 719 titles that are in here. But what we've done is we now know that the top titles for this reading log are The Giver. Okay? So we've done that through choosing our dimension, our date range dimension, which was timestamp, and that's fine. And then our other dimension is book title, and we can change that. We can also add another dimension. Why don't we do that? Why don't we add the author too? So now we have the title and the author and the record count. Can move that over. There we go. And what I found that I really struggled with initially was that students were putting in The Giver, they were putting in giver, they were putting in lowercase t, lowercase g. They were putting in all, like maybe not even a space between the two words. So it's really important that you look at your data and make sure that your data is consistent for a title. So I definitely would go into the Google spreadsheet and I would just check the data every so often to make sure that my numbers are going to be accurate. It didn't take a ton of time, but it was just another thing to keep in mind, because you do want your data to be as clean as possible, because then it's going to show up on your dashboard. Another thing that we can add is we can add in a chart, another kind of chart, and that is a scorecard. And I will show you where the scorecard is on the other page. So right now we've done the most popular books, and right now we're doing the scorecard, which is right here, which is total books read. So now when I did my Google form, I love this. It has record count. That's exactly what I want. It has a timestamp. Perfect. But right now, it has taken every single book that the kids submitted. But I only want the books that they actually completed. And so I had a question in my form that says whether or not they completed it or not. So I'm going to add a filter. So filter is, just like a coffee filter. We want to only let the things through that we want. So we have to kind of do a formula to create that. So down, I've had a couple that I've already created, so I'm going to use those. But to create a filter, it's just that button right down there, create filter. So why don't I do that anyway? All right, so I want to include a particular field, and so the field are those headings, those titles in our spreadsheet, and I want to do Which best is, oh, nope, nope. Was this book finished or abandoned, basically? And so the condition is equals to, and I know that there are two responses for that answer. There are finished or chose another book. So I'm just going to type in finished. So that has to be consistent. Like, so if you have if you're going to use a filter like this, it really needs to be specific in terms of a multiple choice question or something like that. I have found works the best. Okay, now you'll notice that that number was originally over 800. Now it's gone down to 785. So that is the actual number of books that were read. So I could add a title. So why don't I do that? Because like I said, these are just combinations of information. So I'm going to add the text box right there. Books read. Okay, and I'm just going to put it, I could change the font, you know, all that good stuff. And put it wherever I want to. This is not going to be beautiful, my friends, because I'm not spending that much time on it, okay? So I hope it's a judgment-free zone out there listening to me. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is I actually want to put in a pie chart. And so that's just another kind of chart. Like I said, we have lots of kinds of charts. So I'm going to go for the pie chart. And and like I said, you have to put it somewhere, so you have to click on it. All right, so right now it's thinking that I wanted my dimension to be the titles, which is cool, but I mean, not really going to show something that I think is interesting in a pie chart. So I'm actually going to click on the dimension book title, and I'm going to change it to genre. So what kind of book? So I'm going to click on that. And then it's automatically, oh, I did do that one actually. That one was a good one. That's the type of book, but we also have genre as well. So I'm going to choose that one. All right, where is it? Which best describes your book? There it is. See, that's why I said it's really important to have your headings be very clear. I was not so clear on that one. All right, because it was just hard to see. So there we go. There is my pie chart that has the genres that I want them to read. All right, let me get rid of these because I want to show you how to create them. Goodbye. Okay. All right, so let's do a bar chart too, so why not? All right, let's do a bar chart for grade level. That's a good one. So again, it thinks that I want to do book title, so I have to go through and I have to then change it. So I'm going to do grade level. And there we go. The 7th graders are rocking it for number of books that they've read. Again, all of these different items have a data, and then they also have a style. So you can change the colors. You can really customize this to look however you want to. I'm just not doing that right now, but that's definitely something that you can do. Another thing that we really want to do is we want to add a control. A control is going to allow the end user to manipulate the data that you have on the screen. So I generally use the drop down because it just doesn't take up a lot of space. So that's what I'm going to do. And so it's going to think that I want to do which best describes your book, because that's one of the last ones that I did. But I don't want that to be the control field. And the control field is the field that you want to be able to manipulate the data with. So generally I do the date, because that's something that kids like to see. Oh, let me go to control. And then the other one that I do is grade level, because those just tend to be the ones that kids are interested in. Like, what are the top books in the 7th grade? What are the top books? Okay, so those are the two controls that I tend to do. But like I said, your controls can be anything that you have a field for. And when I say field, I mean heading in your original spreadsheet. Now, if you have 2 spreadsheets, you can add more than one source. I just tend to use one source because all of my information is in one place, but you could definitely add multiple sources in.
This has been Turner Tools. Please take a moment to subscribe to get more videos on EdTech treasures you have to check out.